Hey, and we're going to start talking about polynomials. I'm sorry to keep you waiting on this. I just got back to school this morning. And we're going to start at the basics, which is we're going to talk about terms. And another word for term is monomial. And the word mono means one, and nomial means number. So what we're going to talk about first here is just one number, but it's going to look much bigger and uglier than that. It looks like this. All right. Now, every term, every monomial has these four things. It has a sign, which can either be positive or negative. All right, right there in front. It's got a coefficient, which is just a number in front. Then it's got some variable, which is a letter, almost always a letter, but could be any symbol that takes the place of a number. And then it's got an exponent. All right, and I'm hoping you already know that for this variable, to the second power means I take whatever number this is and I multiply it by itself this many times. So this would be x squared, means like if this was 7, it would be 7 times 7, which is this thing would be 49. And it's multiplied, even though it's not written, we assume there's a multiplication sign right in here. So if this was 7, for example, so it'd be 7 squared is 49, and 49 times 3 is 147. So this would be 147. Next thing I want to do is just walk you through some monomials and make sure you're good with what we got here. So this first one, you should see the sign is negative, the coefficient, the number in front is 5, the variable is x, and the exponent is 2. Straightforward. Now this next one, I had to remake this, so I got this mess here. All right. If it's written like this, and now you got my secret, if there's no sign, we assume that it's positive. Now the coefficient here is clearly 3, the variable is clearly x, and now there's no exponent written either. But anytime there's no exponent, we assume it's 1. So this one is, we just say 3x, but it's positive 3 times x to the 1 power. So you want to say 3x, you want to write 3x because it's cleaner, it's neater, it's easier, but we want to, in our minds, know that it's a positive 3 times whatever number x is, and to the first power, that's it. On this blue one again here, no sign, we assume it's positive if there's no sign. But now there's no coefficient. Well, anytime there's no coefficient, we assume that is 1 as well. Variable is clearly y, and the exponent is clearly 2. So this would mean if y was, say, 3, that it would be 1 times 3 squared. 3 squared, that means 3 times 3, which is 9. So if y were 3, then y squared would be 9. Now the last one I want to toss at you is this red one here. If I just have a number, say the number 12. There's no sign written, so we assume it's positive. 12 is the coefficient. That's the number here. And what I can do is, if this was in a line of variables, let's say it was written like this. All right. Now in this case, I can see that it's positive and there's 12, but there's no variable here. But I can assume that this is like y to the 0 power. So this is y squared. This is a y to the 1. And then this is a y to the 0. And you see how the exponents go down from 2 to 1 to 0. And the rule I want you to remember is anything to the 0 power equals 1. 5 to the 0 power equals 1. A pretty little house to the 0 power is 1. Anything to the 0 power is 1. And 1 times 12 is just 12. So we're not going to write this out. We're not going to write that. And we're not going to write this one. All right? But we can assume when we go back to our little table here that since y is the last variable, that it's y to the 0 power. And if it's just by itself, you can just call it plain old 12, just like you've been working with forever. All right, I want you to pause. I want you to write the answers to this down. Physically write them down while the podcast is paused, and then double check. When you start this again, the answers are going to be there. So pause now, and then start and check your answers. All right, there they are. And if you got problems with any of those, shoot me an email. The only one I just want to point out is I left a little box here, just like an opening. And that's because whatever variable that the 17 was in with, then that's what variable I would put here, but it would be to the 0 power. All right, so this is a monomial. It's a single term. It's also a polynomial. Polynomial stands for any of these things. But a monomial is one term. And what we can do is string together a bunch of them. Like that's 2 terms. We call this one a binomial. Bi means 2. Nomial means number. So this is just 2 numbers. I could string together another one. Now this is a trinomial. It's got 3 numbers. And then anything that's 4 or more, like this one, that's just going to be called a polynomial. So I want you to get the idea that if I let x be a number, this is just going to end up being one number. I'll hit you again in the second podcast.